Thank you, Severin Films. Thank you for so many things, but in this moment, thank you for your Blu-ray release of 1969's The Mummy and the Curse of the Jackals. Bad movie lovers are going to thank you for generations for rescuing this film. This is Blu-ray, 81 minutes, directed by Oliver Drake with John Carradine and Anthony Eisley, English SDH subtitles, and whoo doggy. They released this one for me. This feels like the kind of thing that Mystery Science Theater was made for. This is the kind of thing that feels like it should have been released by something weird. I don't know what the previous video history of this is. This transfer looks great. What is this movie about, you fool, you fool? Well, I would usually say I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but there's so little to the story, I might as well. This film is about a Egyptologist, let's call him, in an abandoned house outside of Vegas with comically large cobwebs everywhere, who has unearthed from a local lake. So remember, in everything I'm telling you about, or about to tell you about, what he got came from, let's say, Lake Mead. An Egyptian sarcophagus featuring a wrapped up in bandages mummy, and another sarcophagus featuring a perfectly preserved, beautiful Egyptian princess with a glass top. How they got from Egypt to a lake in Vegas, they don't bother with that. So he is looking to find a way to revive this glassed in beauty. And also he's excited. He's studying these things, and he is going to take these to a big conference in Vegas, and she's going to show the world that he found these two things, and he's trying to figure out their history and what the hieroglyphics mean on the lids and what this Curse of the Jackals is all about. Well, he finds out what the Curse of the Jackals is all about one night when he wakes up as a werewolf. A jackal. It is one of the goofiest werewolf makeups that I've ever seen in a film. It reminds me of the Mexican, like Little Red Riding Hood kind of movies, the Mexican K. Gordon Murray imports. It reminds me of like the Russian fairy tale things. Although those were actually quite good. It feels like the Mexican children's film version of a werewolf. It's supremely goofy. And basically, eventually, a drunken hobo breaks into the house, has a very comic fight with the werewolf jackal, and accidentally releases the princess, who comes back to life, and she's perfect. She's perfect, and she's devoted to this scientist, this Egyptologist. He takes her out on the town. He shows her off to friends, saying, "Oh, this is my friend." I don't think he says cousin, because that would be a little weird. He says, "Oh, this is Betty Sue," and she talks a little weird, but she adapts nicely to the clothes and all that. And eventually, the highlight of this film is the titular mummy and jackal walking the streets of downtown Las Vegas in 1969 with mostly bystanders who have no idea what's going on, who are captured on camera. And you can see a little bit of the inside of a Vegas casino in that area. And it's 1969 Vegas, so it's not the mega resort town that it is now. It's a lot of people on the streets, and it's a lot of neon and twinkling lights, and these two people in bizarre costumes walking around, innocent bystanders. And this movie is fabulous. It's really bad. I mean, it's laughably bad. This is not a film to be taken seriously. Who knows how serious they were when they were making it, but it's really bad. This is like Al Adamson level. This is like Andy Milligan level. This is really not good, but boy, is that not good wonderful. Boy, is that not good. Every reason you want to watch this. Transfer looks great for what it is. Extras are very interesting. I am so glad this film has somehow survived all these years, because this is what this weird cult cinema people like me live for, is new old movies like this. So, and the artwork on this, first of all, makes you think it's a much higher quality film than it is, which almost kind of actually adds to the joke. And I'm sure if this movie had a poster back then, it probably made it look like a lot better movie than it was, because that's how you got butts in seats back then. You had their money. They got through that door, you had their money, and whatever hit the screen was whatever hit the screen. You were going for that smash and grab. You knew that you probably weren't going to get a lot of repeat business on this, but you change the title, put it back at a drive-in triple bill for a decade or so. You can keep shaking that flour sack. So, and everything I told you, by the way, I have in my notes. The essential synopsis, and somehow it gets goofier from there. So it's just I'm keeping this one. Let's just say that. I'm keeping this one. This one's really good. Bonus features. We get the Vega International story, which is an interview with Stephen Thrower, who did the Nightmare USA book, which is essential if you love independent regional American cinema of the 50s through 80s. That's 21 minutes, and it tells the story of the production company that made this and a few other movies. Cowboys, Mummies, and Oliver Drake. It's an interview with historian C. Courtney Joyner, who's on everything these days and is an expert on a lot of things about the director of this film and what else he had done. That's 17 minutes, very good. The Investing in the Jackal, it's an interview with Gary Gassel, son of two of the investors, the husband and wife investors in this film, Milton Gassel and Judy Gassel, and he talks about what he remembers and knows about his parents' involvement in this film, and apparently his mother's in the movie. That's 4 minutes. That's really quirky and interesting. Angelica the Young Vixen, entire bonus film. Also directed by Oliver Drake, roughly around the same time as this. And I believe it has somebody who's a bit player in this film is one of the stars of this film. It's a 1970 adult film. And when I say 1970 adult film, at that time, there was still kind of, I guess there always have been. You've got the softcore market and the hardcore market. The hardcore market was what you think of when you think of adult film. And the softcore market is something people don't really think about. They think about it as like Cinemax After Dark is the modern, not modern equivalent, but anybody, if you said that now and people knew what you were talking about, they're talking about this kind of movie. It's a movie, it's a sex film, but there's nothing explicit about it. It's just naked people running and a story. Strangely enough, a storyline where it's really more story than it is nudity, but there's plenty of nudity, and that's what people were there for. So that's a movie about this young woman who comes in. I didn't write down the synopsis, so I'm kind of stretching to remember. It's a young woman who falls for an older guy, I think, or an older guy falls for her, and she works her way into the family to get the money. And I might be confusing this with something else. The plot doesn't really matter. It's a 1970s sex film. And then it also has a commentary, which is really cool, by Vinegar Syndrome's Joe Rubin and exploitation film researcher Sean Langrick. And this kind of stuff I find fascinating. Like I used to do with the Al Adamson movies, I almost watched the movie so that I would have context for what the commentary was going to be about. And they really get into who everybody in the film, how the film got made, other things that these people did. Really fascinating if, like me, you're a fan or a historian of cult edge fringe filmmaking from this period. Well worth watching the film for that. Or honestly, well worth just watching the commentary and skipping the film by itself, because the commentary is more interesting than the content of the film. So the packaging here, if you can see that, is a very exciting cover that betrays the fact that the creatures do not look that good in the film. Back's got all the information. Crack it open and you get that really interesting cover on the disc as well. This is a great release. I would highly recommend this. If you like Mystery Science Theater, this will allow you to play at home. If you like weird old monster movies, this is one I'd never heard of. I think a lot of us probably haven't heard of this. And I guess they did say in the commentary that this did have a VHS release at one point, and it was so dark and murky you couldn't see anything during the nighttime scenes with the jackal. So that's kind of cool that this brings it out of the darkness and into the home. You got to see this movie, The Mummy and the Curse of the Jackals.